about their pain and their glory. Oh yeah. Many rivers flow to this naked eye, bringing fear and pain, but also a brand new style. And of all these rivers that shape this land, two mighty ones move like a sculptor's hand. And today those hands across the land, man, is still landscaping. And there's no doubt we can work it out, there is no escaping. As the river flows, there are those who will change its passage. But every common man got to understand up and send a message. So put up your hand if you understand. Now come, see how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we step in style. One lovely nation under a groove, the Ganges don't meet the Nile. Them boys with the hidden agendas and the mind benders, people don't take it from. Your smart men and politicians can come along if they want, cause the people got the power and the glory. See how we float in sky, see how we moving, watch how we grooving. The Ganges has met the Nile. Differences there will always be, so that you'll be you and I'll be me. That's the damn thing, self, that makes it sweet. Brother, bring your drum, let me start to beat. Don't mind them politicky politicians. And with the politicky situation, we done jamming and we jamming and we jamming and jam, cause we know the story. Let them fight if they want in this land of the deferred glory. People put up your hand if you understand. Now come, see how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we step in style. One lovely nation under a groove, the Ganges don't meet the Nile. Them boys with the hidden agendas and the mind benders, they will always do their due. Various smart men and politicians, them could come along too, cause we moving with the power and the glory. See how we float in style, see how we moving, watch how we grooving. The Ganges has met the Nile. See how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we float in style.
Yes, indeed, of course. A pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago. When I say North, East, West, South, Central, I'm referring to Trinidad, of course. And in the case of Tobago, well, Tobago as a whole, separate and apart. And then, of course, we have, of course, those in the region and those in the diaspora, but in the rest of the world. Pleasant good day to you. And of course, indicating to you that, of course, I am not familiar with what time of the day it is in your neck of the woods, but nonetheless, of course, have a wonderful day, wherever in the world that you may be. But of course, it is the penultimate day before the Emancipation Day celebrations tomorrow. And I thought a fitting tribute to that, I would, of course, be garbed in traditional wear. But I want to say very categorically and upfront that this must not be a one-time, even though, of course, we say the same thing about Christmas. We say the same thing about, of course, other celebrations that has a deep sense or is reposed in a cultural, human, and of course visionary root for a people. And so it is only fitting that, of course, Emancipation Day must be an everyday affair, a perennial affair, not an annual affair. or indeed a biannual affair happening twice a year. No. Or triannual happening 3 times a year. It must be perennial, meaning that it must be on a daily basis throughout the 165 and a quarter days that a year comprises of. That is very important to us as a fundamental lesson. Because we have established that the African community, which of course the holiday has been dedicated to, let us not waste time. Just as how, of course, Indian Arrival Day is dedicated to the Indians and their ancestry arrival here in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, of course, Emancipation is a similar ilk, and a time of intense focus by the national community, not just the African community, who by itself and as a subset of the population of Trinidad and Tobago must do some deep and frank and unadulterated introspection. Of course, the music that was played preceding the introduction that I am now engaged in certainly suggests that we live in a cosmopolitan, multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious society. But that being a reality, the fact is, as I said on the ground report this morning, and because we are living in a globalized world, having regard to the length of time that human beings have, of course, occupied this particular planet, and the various systems that we would have put in place for survival on this planet, Trinidad and Tobago, therefore, as a minuscule or insignificant player, does not, of course, have a nuclear bomb, does not have an army of any significance, does not by itself has geopolitical or regional geopolitical or international geopolitical clout, but always are able to find its way, whether it's at the level of the United Nations, whether it is at the level of hemispheric institutions that would have been created, such as the OAS, the Organization of American States, or indeed other institutions, whether it be that of the Caribbean Development Bank, and whether it be, of course, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, or whether it be the Inter-American Development Bank, whether it be ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, an institution that would have been created to monitor the health of the economies of the Western world or the Western Hemisphere, but in particular that of Latin America and the Caribbean. Why am I saying all of this? You see, because if we do not understand our place in this world, and more particularly that section of this earth that is called the Western Hemisphere, where big players, monolithic players, such as the United States, Canada, dominates, and of course the plethora of Latin American countries from Central America, whether it be, of course, Mexico, whether it be Nicaragua, whether it be Panama, we are going to find ourselves in difficulty if we do not understand that we have to eke out or niche out a space for ourselves as a 1.5 million people among what I will describe as the sharks of the world. Because we are living in or dwelling or existing in shark-infested waters. And I'm using this terminology figuratively, of course, but to emphasize that there is a need for us to become serious. And I'll tell you why later down the road. And I'll also tell you why the African community must even be more, not just conscious, but act, not just responsibly, but also engage, so as to make its contribution to the shark-infested waters, as I have referred to earlier. But yes, we also have a gigantic part of the American continent that is called South America, comprising countries such as Bolivia, such as, of course, Brazil, such as Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, and indeed some of the more familiar names such as Suriname. And while, of course, Guyana may be considered to be part of the Caribbean community, it is in fact a part, geographically, part of South America, and therefore is deserving to be called part of the South American continent, as indeed that of Venezuela. That being as it may, I have laid the foundation for a kind of Trinidad and Tobago, swimming, as I said, in shark-infested waters, a figurative expression and analogy that refers to not only are we small and could be easily gobbled up in such circumstance, but we must be very meticulous and careful, because it is not literal shark-infested. If it was shark-infested, I can tell you, we would have already been consumed as part of the, what I consider to be the food chain, as we have seen, of course, in the animal kingdom. In the whale, the planktons will be eaten, of course, by very small fishes. And of course, fishes here means different types of fish, but usually fish is not seen as singular, but you also say fish as plural, but if it's the same type of fish. But when you say fishes, it means therefore you're talking about different types of fish. And yes, indeed, and then the bigger ones will eat those smaller ones, and of course then the dominant, and should I say the king of them all at the top of the food chain, whether it be sharks, or whether it be, of course, dolphins, some people say, as well as, of course, whales, even though, of course, they are mammals that consume planktons per se, and in the context of land animals, may be considered to be herbivores in the context of land animals I'm talking about. Of course, on the land side, there is, of course, at the top of the chain, the lion. But of course, we have smaller ones that eat even smaller ones. And then when they would have gotten large enough, such as maybe a cow, a buffalo, a deer, they will consume, the lions will consume those animals, because they are at the top of the food chain, and nobody else, except man, of course, would be able to interfere with them. So I am making the point in respect of the role of the African community. Let me repeat, I am making the point in the context of the African community and the role that we are expected to play in a cosmopolitan, as I said earlier, multi-dimensional, including, of course, religious, social, economic, and indeed cultural mix that the Trinidad and Tobago, that matrix that Trinidad and Tobago is indeed has been consumed in. I wouldn't say a part of, because of course the Trinidad and Tobago as a whole I'm talking about, and the role of the African community. But of course we have, as I said, a crisis of leadership. Let me repeat. The African community clearly has had, having regard to its evolution in Trinidad and Tobago, a crisis of leadership. I had the cause this morning to talk on the ground report as to some of the aspects of that notion, or put another way, I don't want to say it's a theory, I want to say that practical analysis as to the position of the African community in Trinidad and Tobago in existential or today's circumstance. Let us not waste time. We have to recognize that we have a responsibility if there is unanimity as far as that is concerned. And of course, I pointed to education, I pointed to the professions, I pointed to the economic standing, I pointed to even the living spaces that we occupy on this part of the planet called Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, I want to go a little more deeper because I want to tell you that we cannot avoid being influenced, or put another way, the other ethnic group which we share this piece of land with, pursuing their own agenda for prosperity, for economic advancement, for competing for limited, maybe, professional opportunity, and indeed making use of the educational facilities and or systems that will, of course, cause one to gravitate to the highest point of excellence achievement in Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not waste time. And I love to make the comparison between, of course, Tobago and possibly Grenada, St. Vincent, and that of Trinidad. You see, because by and large, Tobago has been dominated by the African stock, if you want to call it that. And I try to avoid using the word stock because it is emancipation, and of course you get the impression that, of course, we are talking about some kind of commercialization of the African community. So I want to take back that term and use the African strain of the various strains of humanity that came from different continents. The African clearly came from Africa. But of course, we have a mono situation in Tobago. We have a mono situation in Grenada and St. Vincent. In other words, they are dominated by, these islands are dominated by Africans. And what are the developmental indicators to suggest that they have been managing their resources or their God-given, should I say, benefits, their God-given resources in a manner that we could be proud of? And of course, making the comparison with that of Trinidad as to whether or not, comparatively speaking, the African community has strived in such a way that we can clearly say that from, of course, one stage to the next, but always developmental and advancing. Yes, you understand where I'm coming from. But let me pause and to say as well that if you want to join us now, you can do so on YouTube by, of course, logging on to the Corridor Transformation. Corridor Transformation. And on Facebook, you can log on to Alfred John, nothing else, Alfred John on Facebook to get us right now. Because it is significant. Let's go straight to the lines immediately. So I'm not going to, going to belabor and to, of course, hold you in any significant discourse. Wise, of course, you make your call. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yeah, good night.
Good night. Yes. How are you going, man?
I'm doing all right. I'll send a video for you on Google.
Tell me.
Yeah, for certain manufacturing sector in India. We did produce a cheaper set of electrical vehicles.
All right.
And the president was prime minister was going to the other day and see where people come to the
I see. All right, well, I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at it. Any other contribution you want to make?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When the Me Too people come out for this man.
When you what?
The Me Too people.
The Me Too people. All right. Well, now that Interpol appear to be involved, I think I am now motivated to treat with that matter, to revisit that matter, now that he has no damn power to do anything about it. So I am going to. Thanks very much for that. Reminder. I'm going to pursue it.
Always remember, I who am reminding you about this all the time. Eh?
Yes. I remember Felix reminded me of the Me Too movement agenda that we started some time ago. Yes, I certainly will.
Yeah, I always ask you, well, when you go get this protocol letter.
Oh well, he got one already. He got that protocol letter. I'm going to disclose that, but I'm going to marry both of them in the not too distant future because he needs to be not just disciplined, but he needs to pay for his iniquities and his betrayal of the African people and the country as a whole when he was prime minister. He needs we need to take revenge. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what you didn't see when he was giving this interview, how he falsely nearly come out his mouth like he looking well frightened.
I didn't observe that because I didn't see the full interview, but I would look at it. Yeah, I'll watch it again, my friend. All right.
And imagine protocol of who Interpol interrogate this man. It's just that he was delayed.
Yeah.
They come like
his conscience was pricking him when he, of course, he felt it necessary to, of course, disclose that engagement, while at the same time referring to the Attorney General's statement that he will go to war with you, and it's a good thing he was in the Parliament because he too would have been pointed out as the Attorney General going to war with, because as far as the Attorney General is concerned, he knew or he knows that they were engaged, of course, in mismanagement, they were engaged in corruption, they were engaged, of course, in the abuse of office, and therefore, of course, requires, as Rowley has put into the lexicon of our politics, blue lights and silver bracelets. Yes.
Right. Next thing too, they can't argue with the Attorney General because he was once a PNM. Remember, he talked about his friend.
Well said. Well, very, very perceptive, and therefore he can't argue with that. That's why they were so upset when they found that Jeremy was on a platform with the UNC and therefore the present Prime Minister's team. Yes.
Yeah. What about the land case he have now?
The land matter, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, the land date matter. Well, I suppose the
But the land gate,
oh,
not the land gate. It is where you are sheep and things.
well, yeah, well, I understand that there's a matter that would have been engaging the Privy Council.
Yeah, and the Privy Council in the court.
Yeah,
You know what that reminds me of?
because I
You know
wouldn't be
what that
surprised
reminds me
if
of?
I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that he's trying to steal the people's land. They laboring under the fact that they're selling part of the land, but he want all because the people didn't have a surveying to demarcate this portion of the land. So he decided to have all over time because they probably didn't have the resources to do the surveying so as to demarcate what part he has and what part they want to retain for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So, who that remind you of? Not Dylan who wanted to surrender a man.
It appears that they have that tendency to, of course, rob people. Yes.
Yeah.
Rob people.
Hey, lENNOX.
Hey.
Yes, don't forget, watch out the video and we'll discuss this.
I'm going to do that. I may well want to discuss it tomorrow night. All right? Yeah.
No, tomorrow night you're going for your typical or you don't call it?
Oh yes, tomorrow night is Sabatal. I forgot that.
Yes, Sabatal.
You know where I'm going tomorrow. All right. I'll see if I can take a look at it tonight, but we may not have much time. But we'll see how it pans out.
Invite Mikey and Andy.
Yeah?
Invite Andy and Mikey.
All right. I will do that as well. I'll do that as well. Yes, man. Yeah.
All right, man, later.
Yeah, okay then. Thanks very much for your intervention. Yes, people. Well, of course, that suggests that people really hate Rowley Boy. And I did mention that he would have been one of the most hated persons, or the most hated person in the country, and worse yet, the most, what I consider, obnoxious and have the anathema, and will attract the anathema, the hatred of the people, anathema, as a prime minister. Nobody else as prime minister occupying that, what I consider to be hollow office, could be so ascribed or so described as, of course, being what? Being the most hated because of the devastation that he brought to Trinidad and Tobago on the basis of lies, on the basis of deception. Let us not waste time. You can't tell me that you don't know that he lied about those fake pieces of paper that he called emails. You cannot tell me that Rowley has escaped your thoughts, your memory, as utilizing those pieces of paper to cause a government to fall. You cannot tell me that you don't know that under normal circumstances, Rowley should be charged for treason because he accused in the parliament of the country a prime minister and her cabinet members of, among other things, the plotting to kill a journalist. You can't tell me you don't know that. You can't tell me that you don't know that the hullabaloo that was made about, of course, Section 34, and indeed the Rishmi affair, all of which are really on words, storm in a teacup, or storms in a teacup. You could control that and dismiss it. But he was able, of course, to hoodwink, to deceive, to gaslight the population, and to cause massive disruption, including, of course, and culminating in marches from Woodford Square straight up to the then President House. He, of course, alone have been able to generate in a mind, and is supposed to be one that is reasonably intelligent. After all, he has a doctorate in what? In volcanology. He's a geologist. But clearly, using that brain, having gone to university, to concoct, to manufacture pernicious, evil, wicked, diabolical, Luciferian construct, so as to get him and his cohorts, a bunch of evil people, into, of course, the corridors of power. And when they would have gotten into power, it was pain, ache, agony, stress, strain between 2015 and the 29th of April this year. That is what he brought to Trinidad and Tobago. He could be considered to be the contemporary plague. Plague, because it's death and destruction. He, his Minister of Health, his Minister of National Security, all of whom have been described by citizens of this country to be what? To be ministers of death. Ministers of death. We see, of course, in COVID, what the so-called dual parallel response to COVID did. 5,000 deaths. One of the worst in the world. And having, of course, claimed that they are number one in the world in terms of response to COVID. We see, of course, in addition to that, the Minister of Health, the former Minister of Health, are talking about the ass Singh. Apart from, of course, superintending, as was with Rowley, those 5,000 deaths you also had just at the ending of last year into the beginning of this year, prenatal deaths, children dying before they could have a good breath, dying before they could be classified as infants. How much of them? I think it's 20-something of them, between, of course, Mount Hope and that of Port of Spain. And, of course, you had a Minister of National Security spread between, or among, I should say, because once it's more than three, you say among. Once it's two, you say between. So you have to say among Dillon, the first Minister of National Security, who incidentally, as the caller rightly said, was the man who tried to thief an old person, a senior citizen's property in the United States. But among him, then Short Young, and of course, the most disaster, as if the talent resource of the PNM has reached ground zero, below the bottom line. They scrape below the barrel to pull up Hines to be the Ministry of National Security and therefore the minister. And we saw record-breaking every year. The record of the previous year was broken by the presence of Hines in, of course, the Ministry of National Security. And he has disappeared. He has disappeared off the political radar. But retribution will follow them, because no man could do such evil and get away with it when, of course, they would have been doing it to people who were not only gullible, and gullible from the perspective that they are God-fearing and that they repose their trust into these people's hands. And therefore the country and what we got in return was disaster after disaster. People, we are the beneficiary, and of course when you talk about beneficiary, normally it's something positive. But we are the beneficiary, but you also have negative beneficiaries as well. Well, we are the negative beneficiaries of the disaster that would have been the Rowley PNM administration, and for about 20-something days, this Short Young PNM disaster. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So that is what we are engaged in, and that is what, of course, we want to make certain that we have the kind of understanding, the kind of reality that is Trinidad and Tobago today. Understand that. And therefore, we need to be very conscious on the penultimate day of the celebration of emancipation that we don't fall prey to further destruction and disaster, as we made the decision to take a quantum leap, to reverse the situation, to metamorphosize to a new place, a different place, where vision is obvious and where implementation, policies and programs that are salubrious to all of us, under a what? A new administration called UNC Coalition of Interests, managed and spearheaded by Kamla Prasad Bisesa, SC MP, Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago today. Eat your heart out, those of you who has some kind of what I consider to be nostalgic or nostalgia for the PNM by the slipshod and the superficial and the superfluous arguments, and some kind of misplaced sympathy for Penelope Beckles, for Gonzalez, for young Marcel, and the others who clearly are not just disappointments, but were part and parcel of that macabre team that, if we didn't make that intervention on the 28th of April, we would have been facing property tax on top of the pressure that we were getting, on top of the unemployment that was the reality. All of that. Behind the phone ringing, but I am not seeing it on the system, so I would want, the phone is charging, so anybody who, of course, are not being caught up by the system, I will not be able to treat with you immediately, but we had put a system in place just in case we are only catching you on the phone. But don't forget, of course, the number to call, 337-6940, 337-6940, and of course, it's only WhatsApp, So if by the way you are able to, of course, call on the normal phone, well, we have put a system in place where we can capture, because we know that some people may not have WhatsApp. So of course you can call back. I'm getting the indication that the phone may well be ready momentarily, so that you can make your contribution, and of course we'll be able to get all and sundry to be part and parcel of tonight's exercise on the corridor transformation. So yes indeed, but let me of course for the moment go to a video, and that will of course put things in perspective, because one of the issues that was raised today, and one of the issues that I'm sure will be in whether budding leaders, whether what I consider to be defunct leaders, whether de facto leaders, whether legit leaders, whether leaders that are emerging and have a perspective as to where the African community should go. The fact of the matter is that all of us must be concerned with respect to all right. So call back caller on the handset. I'm not getting you on the system, but of course I have the phone in front of me, and I will of course make adjustments. What can happen is that I don't know if we can charge from here, boy. I have a serious problem. Every time I put a charging system in place for the phone, somebody, whether it's one of the kids or whatever, take it and make it their own without the consciousness, and therefore I had to read the attack when I finished tonight. Have to read the attack, because this is too important to be simply viewed as nebulous. Not having, of course, the access to the phone, having, of course, put mechanisms in place to address those who would, having, of course, lost theirs or for one reason or another don't have access to, they just come inside of the studio and take my charger, etc., etc. I have a serious problem with that. Serious problem, because you will be deprived. And you have been deprived. I know Mr. Tagriwa, for example, he calls in a particular way. I always get him on the phone itself, but was not able to get him for about 2 nights. And I value, of course, all of the contributions, all. And it mustn't be because of some internal delinquency, some internal non-appreciation that you would be deprived and I would be deprived of because at the end of the day, all of us benefits when, of course, all of the contributions are brought to reality, brought to the attention of all of us. But that being as it may, let me, of course, as I said, and I'm focusing here on the whole question of crime and criminality, economic advancement or disadvancement or deterioration or retrogression. All of that, I think, will be captured in the statement made by Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the Prime Minister, Honorable, in the Parliament, in her contribution to, of course, the extension of the state of emergency. And for those opposition, the 12+1 blight that were, of course, attempting to ridicule, to reduce the potency. And, of course, those of us who are in the know will know that once the PNM is out of office, crime reduces in this country. Let us not waste time. Once the PNM is out of office, crime reduces in this country. And not different to previous, what I consider successor institutions or political parties that would have come into government after the PNM. There will be, of course, a transition period. We are in the transition period as far as crime and criminality is concerned. It happened in 2010 when Manning couldn't, of course, control the crime situation, and therefore, at that time in 2008, 537 murders was the record. Of course, it was way above what occurred in the previous Basio Pandey administration between 1995 and about 2000, 2001. And again, way above what occurred as far as murders are concerned under the Robinson administration between 1986 and 1991. In between there would have been escalation because Robinson went out of office and in came the PNM, and it simply just went out of control. Basio came and of course it was reduced. Then of course Robinson gave the leadership or the prime ministerial position to Manning, and crime just escalated. And when, of course, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the UNC, took over for Manning, it was reduced. And as soon, of course, as the most hated man in the country then and even now, and Prime Minister Keith Christopher Rowley, everything went out the door. Even Manning's record of 537 was broken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even when, of course, in 2019, when, of course, this fella who is claiming to be the best commissioner of police are talking about, of course, the man that turned politician, Gary Griffin, talk himself out of government, talk himself out of the runnings, as Kamala Prasad Bisesa sword and the coalition of interests dominated and continues to dominate. But that is the fact. So now that they are out of office, let me say first that in every scenario where the PNM took over, they benefited from a reduced crime rate. And conversely, every time the UNC or the NAI took over, whether under Pandey, whether under Robinson, whether under Kamala Prasad Bisesa, they would have had a transition of increased crime before they were able, of course, before their 5-year term, to reduce it considerably. And of course, we know that there is no PNM in 2030, no PNM in 2035, no PNM in 2040, no PNM in 2045, no PNM in 2050. That is the reality, since, of course, the entire process has come full circle, and nobody wants, of course, to engage for political governance in this country a party that clearly has a nexus, whether mysteriously, whether enigmatically, with crime and criminality. And therefore, the common sense of the population will certainly reflect that in future elections. Let's go to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yes, Dr. Lenox.
Good night, my friend.
Good night to you, sir. You look very sharp in your dashiki.
Yes, but traditional way, yes.
Yeah. But let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. The fourth estate, right?
Yes, the fourth estate, meaning that the media,
yeah,
yes.
They're supposed to be independent and impartial, right? And bring the news how it's supposed to be. That's all?
Repeat that for me. It came across a bit muffled.
Yeah, I said the fourth estate.
Yes.
Yeah, they're supposed to bring the news independently, not so?
Yes. Independence is vital for the credentials or the sustainability or the legitimacy of the fourth estate. Go ahead.
Right. So I listened to a reporter, Akash Samaru.
Yes.
Questioning the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. And the hot topic was the 10%.
What?
This man.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
About the public servants, 10%.
Oh yeah, 10%, yes. Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, when they will get it and all of this foolishness. But the people and them, they haven't read a budget yet, Dr. Lennox. There are so many other questions to ask about the SOE and all that. But apparently they have some kind of agenda because I don't know if you knew, right? But
yes.
The opposition PNM had a meeting via the same media. And they were saying that is in birth, that the 10% will bankrupt Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes,
so
on the campaign trail, yeah.
No,
but
not
go
the
ahead.
campaign trail. I think that was recently here, man.
As well, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead, yes.
in both of saying that if they give the public servants and them 10%, it will bankrupt Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
That cannot be achieved.
Okay.
That cannot be achieved. I think Manning came after and spoke the same kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? But
go ahead, yes.
People have to remember that a budget was not presented by the government as yet. All they did was come to get an extension of some money, because remember when election came and the money finished, it's something like a media review and they're asking for extra money.
Yes.
But they haven't read a budget in the took office. So why are they so impatient or hasty? Some kind of agenda there? Don't you think so?
Yeah, well, we have always suspected the traditional media that, of course, is becoming a dinosaur, not the first source of news these days, in Trinidad in particular, of course, having a PNM agenda. And therefore, it is not surprising that off the cuff, but nonetheless, nonsensical arguments will be, or should I say, questions will be posed to the present government. In fact, let me just play this for you so that it puts it in perspective. Let me just play it for you. Right, I have it there. Let me see why it is not. Right. Let me make sure that we have it so that people could know what you are talking about.
Looking for money. If you have any, give us some. Thank you all.
Right, there you have it. Let me just play it over again, and let me put some volume there. All right, we have enough volume there. All right, good. Let's go again. This was the question posed.
God willing, we keep our promises. God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it. Looking for money. If you have any, give us some. Thank you all.
Let's say it again.
Yeah, sure.
Let's say it one more time, and then we will engage again.
Are you all setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it. Looking for money. If you have any, give us some. Thank you all.
Right. Let's get back to, of course, the substantive contribution that you are now making. So there you have it, people. Where, of course, she was asked, because I want to comment on it. That's why I searched for the clip, to give veracity to the caller and his concern about the Fourth Estate. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so I will dwell into something else. You were speaking about the record murder and so. But
Yes.
you forget to mention, I don't know if you mentioned it.
Uh-huh.
But remember Rowley had went to this Caricom meeting, and you were talking about all these gangs and crime and murder. And
Yeah.
you wanted a public health something, you referred to as a public health.
Yeah, it was a public health crisis. And of course,
Right.
we were mocking him by saying, well, okay, a man point a gun at you, he's about to discharge it, or in fact discharge it, just run to the nearest pharmacy and get some kind of antidote. Yeah, because that, so foolish was that. Quite apart from the fact that he talked about the religious community need to, of course, help them or address the question. He blamed the parents. He blamed the schools. He blamed young girls like hyenas in the African jungle. I mean, it's the most amount of dereliction of responsibility, multifaceted and multiple, I have ever heard in my life so far, and I trust that I have to hear no more, because I think he has exhausted all. That was asinine, and that was stupid and foolish, only to make excuses for what? For incompetence and impotence, because once the PNM is in government, crime literally and exponentially increases. As I was saying before, of course, you came on board. But go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, but like I say, he had the highest, which is gold. He had the second highest, which is silver. Remember I mentioned that to you on some earlier programs, right?
Yes.
And you also had bronze. Patrick Manning was in fourth, and he back in fifth and sixth. So every time they were in office, it was record, crime, and murder.
Yeah, record. Have the records. Only record after record.
Yeah.
Breaking. The last 9 years before the 18th of April. I mean, it's one after the next. Successive years of increased murders after they are telling us that they have it under control. And they have the audacity now, as if they were not responsible, and if none of them were part and parcel of that, what I consider to be a period of gross gross murders, macabre scenario, to, of course, have the belly to advise people as to how to deal with crime and criminality. Imagine they are offering advice to the UNC that has a track record of reducing after they would have, of course, escalated the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago whenever the misfortune of the population choose them to be in office. And even in that situation, we know it wasn't a misfortune because they stole the elections, 2015 and 2020. Go ahead, my friend.
And then the state of emergency that they call, right?
Yeah.
I believe that they called it just to get that number below 50, you know. Right? Because it was going to head to in that direction.
Okay.
And also the carnival. And the carnival also.
Yes, man.
Right? Because the carnival might have caused that to go a little higher. Right?
All right.
Yeah, so have a good one tonight.
Thank you very much, of course. Tomorrow, of course, don't forget, no program tomorrow. I'll be, I will not be marching, but of course, I'll be at Spargos as per usual.
All right.
Right. Okay, then,
All
my
right,
friend.
you take care and stay safe.
Yes,
Yeah.
man.
Right.
Getting my sharpening up, of course, my what I consider to be kinetic skills, my movement skills, kinetic energy skills. All right. That being as it may, let us hear Kamala Prasad Bisesa once again as she responded, of course, to them, because I am saying that I am doing this for a specific reason. Let's hear her again before we
approaching. Are you all setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it.
for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
Setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God,
Are you all setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it. Looking for money. If you have any, give us some.
setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it. Looking for money. If you have any, give us some.
You see, of course, people, I played it in that way to address a particular issue. The head, Lumpkin, the head of the teachers union, made a comment on that particular response that was given by Kamala Prasad Bisesa. He says that of course, that the government cannot rely on God, because she said that God willing, and they keep their promises, and they're working on it. And if anybody has some money, give it to them. Of course, she was saying that in jest, in joke. But Lumpkin, the head of the teachers union, and that's why I asked for someone on the program this morning to do the research to find out if, of course, internal elections of the teachers union is on the front burner, or is about to happen, or when it will next be executed. Because I found it strange that here it is, he took the decision just before the April 18th, or no, 28th, sorry, April 28th, general elections, to accept the 5% that was given in the budget statement. No negotiations in the budget statement, suggesting a dictatorial, not just tendency, but autocracy was on the rampage. It was moving with alacrity. It was moving with speed. It was moving with reckless haste. A government, ignoring, of course, the process whereby negotiations for salaries, whether government or otherwise, would be determined in a budget, says, well, listen, only didn't want the 4%, we'll be offering 5%, full stop. And not giving, of course, the representative body, which, of course, will show respect for the collective bargaining process, for proper negotiations to take place, for the recognition of the representative trade unions or trade union, that you unanimously, I would say unanimously is not the term, but unilaterally. It has uni in it, you know, so sometimes you have these Freudian slips. Unilaterally, by yourself, alone, says you're going to offer 5%. And while, of course, we weren't aware at the time that an election would have been called, and while there would have been a space between the presentation of that budget, that unilaterally offered 5%, and at the time of the election, because the budget would have been read somewhere in October, September, October, and therefore all those months elapsed until Stuart Young, who would have been Prime Minister for about 26 days thereabout, if so long, decided to call an election. Here it is, Lumpkin, in the course of the campaign, decides to say that the tutor will now accept the 5% offered way back when, comparatively speaking. I am saying this to tell you that it's clear that it was a political gesture to try to, of course, somehow get the PNM to put their head in front politically and come out trumps, so that he too, as far as I am concerned, will be part of that conspiracy to further dampen, to further plunge Trinidad and Tobago into economic, social, and psychological turmoil. If the PNM had only won, and that he, Lumpkin, decision to say that they will accept it means that they were sympathetic to the PNM at the time, who, of course, the population recognized was, of course, the bane, was the ache, was the pain, was the, of course, devilish manifestation and the retrogression of Trinidad and Tobago. Let us not waste time. I am speaking, of course, as one who considers himself part of the teaching profession, the pedagogy, part of the teaching profession, pedagogue, teaching. Yes, indeed. And to say to those followers of a fellow like Lumpkin, he needs to be called out. Because you see, when he could have shut his trap, even now, and then, and wait to see the outcome of the elections, because the UNC on the campaign trail and the coalition of interest was saying we will start at 10% negotiations with the PSA. Yet still, he went ahead and accept the 5% during the campaign. So clearly, it shows that he had a preference, a bias for the PNM, and therefore is a conspirator assuming that they would have won the elections, to plunge Trinidad and Tobago after they would have won the election into further, as I said, economic, social, and psychological turmoil. And the reduction, of course, in the quality of life, standard of living, and the increase further of crime and criminality. Let us not waste time. Once the PNM is in government, crime simply escalates. But there is something more sinister than that. So quite apart from effectively indicating that he is on the side of the enemy of that devastation called the PNM under Rowley, and of course at that 26th-day Prime Minister Young, there's another thing that we must not overlook or see as trifle. Because they say on the campaign trail, the PNM was saying, because clearly they could have only said that because they thought they would have won the elections, clearly, because I don't know if they had, or their machinery for stealing the election broke down, because it's clear. But what we were saying, we at the ground report and the corridor transformation was saying, that we must win the blasted election so unanimously, so magnificently ahead of the PNM, that it would have been the victory would have been too grand, too monolithic to steal. But I think if that is what overwhelmed them, because up to now we cannot get the final tally from the direct documents of the Laventille East Mover constituency, which of course we are still pursuing. And therefore, of course, as I said, that the PNM would have preferred to lose a whole election than to lose any one of the Laventilles. No doubt. And while, of course, I cannot, from the information we have at this time, confirm that one of the Laventilles was lost to the PNM, but the fact of the matter is that the results was so, what I consider to be close. The proximity of the loss to the victor, the PNM candidate, is so close, comparatively speaking. We talk about 4,000 votes to 5,000 votes. And in the context of Laventille, that's a close finish, because the PNM has been dominant and have been, of course, getting 11,000 consistently in these constituencies. So there is more in the mortar than the pestle, and we will, of course, pursue, because my candidate, my party's candidate, Love, of part of the corridor, part of the coalition of interests, contested that seat. And therefore, I will want to get to the bottom of this matter. The EBC is gauging, they're saying that they are prohibited by law to provide us with copies of the original hand-calculated, handwritten tally sheets. That's what they tell us. But they were quick. We didn't ask for that, but they gave us, of course, a copy of an electronic sheet. We don't want that. We want copies, EBC, of the handwritten, coming from, of course, all of the polling stations. Those tally sheets, that is what we want, and we are prepared to pay for it, as the law says, where there may be some difficulty as far as the cost of reproducing is concerned. We are prepared to pay for it. We told them that in our letter under the Freedom of Information Act. I did, of course, disclose that to you, but not as emphatic as I'm doing now, because there will be time when we will be much more elaborate. But the point I am making, coming back to Lumpkin, is that here it is that the PNM on the campaign trail was saying that, of course, the country will be bankrupt if, of course, that 10% is provided to the public servants. And they believe that somehow they could escape, of course, being fair to the public servants by engaging in that kind of what I consider to be not just propaganda, but attempting to fearmonger. It's fearmongering, it is called. Fearmongering. And therefore, it reinforces not the notion, but by deductive reasoning, that it was the intention of the leadership led by Lampkin of the Teachers Union to be an ally of the PNM, so that if they would have won, would have plunged us as a nation into deeper tragedy, deeper trauma, a deeper ineffective leadership and destruction. That would have been the effect of that decision, people, and therefore Lampkin and his team must not be in any way seen as a friend of teachers or a friend of the population at large. Because trade unions have a responsibility not only to their members, but also to look at the overall situation in the country and to know how to fashion their arguments, their narrative, and of course their approach to the responsibility, the awesome responsibility that they have to, of course, directly and indirectly augment the standard of living and quality of life of not only their members, but of course the wider society. That's the point I am making. So let us go back again, because Lampkin said, could have remained silent, but he said that what God had to do with this. And in other words, they wanted the additional monies that they should get because they accepted the 5%. And suggesting, and this is my view of it, suggesting that the 10% promise will not come. So trying to expedite and to, of course, vicariously pursue the agenda of what Gonzalez and Penalty Beckles and of course this neophytic, what I consider to be clearly nincompoop from Laventille West. I had to say it because youth has nothing to do with it. Youthful exuberance has nothing to do with it. When of course you are at that level and are expected of course to represent a community that of course has been dispossessed, has been of course treated poorly, and has been of course been abused. How dare you act so nincompoopish and expect not to be castigated for so doing. If you are not in your league, get the hell out, resign and go, and let me put a candidate there to contest a by-election. That is what you should be doing. Calling for elections, that is the election we should be having. Resign from the seat of course, Laventille West, and let us contest again on fair games. We'll have to play over. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Uncle Lennox, and to all your listeners.
Yes,
please share the live and let everyone tell the other. And any small little financial contribution is appreciated. And I would like to say to the listeners and all where this broadcast will reach tonight, happy Emancipation Day to each and every one of you. And let us know, although Rowley tell them African Emancipation Day, let us take that as a understanding and know the true meaning of emancipation. And when one emancipate themselves from bondage, because in the Bible, Moses came amongst his people when he get to know who and where he belongs, because his father, which is his stepfather, gave him all, the whole of Rome and every goal that he can want. And when he get to realize that he's a child of the soil and was adopted, he emancipated himself to help others to be free. So the true story of Moses and Uncle lENNOX, they go inside, side by side. So Uncle lENNOX, I would like to, as usual, ask a question, and you feel free to press that button and say end of conversation. Today, if anyone, right-thinking citizen had listened to the press briefing of the cabinet today, they will see that my honorable esteemed political leader, Ms. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, have once again delivered to the people and make the change that is necessary in society and what you are talking about. Because now the secondary school will have the necessary instructors to teach the basic electrical, mechanical, engineering, home ec, and principle of business. You will be teaching in the secondary schools, meaning that the government secondary school, which are not the 7 years denominational school and 7 years colleges, right? We're talking about the trades and the secondary schools where we call junior sec and composite. So they will be trained and be equipped so that when they reach in Form 5, they will have a trade and better trained to go into the work field if they don't want to move on to tertiary level. So the option is there. So that is one good step in the right direction at taking the youths and saving the youths from themselves and falling into slavery like what the PNM want them to be. Because the PNM want them to be dependent, come by me only every 5 years and put me in power. Because Penelope and them is not talking about upliftment, they're talking about getting back power, money for themselves, and to enrich themselves. And I want them, when they hear this broadcast, please send me a pre-protocol action letter. I'm asking for it. Because if I'm lying, I will prove myself in court. Because the evidence is out there, and it's clear as day, dark as night. And please, I want all you to let the PNM and the 13 of them emancipate themselves, free themselves from the people. And it's time the people understand we have the power and enough is enough. And as we move forward on another day, Uncle lENNOX will take his time, his human service, trying to save the same people who do like Moses when he take them across the Red Sea, went back to drink, fed, and worship idols. And then right now, Uncle lENNOX is cussing my leader. Oh, leader, give me the tools, give me the tools. I want to free my people in Laventille. But is the audio ready for it? And you see, Marcel, you are serving the narrative, and I like what you are doing. You are just letting the people of Laventille see that the mistake they make for the last 53 years, voting for the PNM, no delivery. They leave them like a full bus on the side of the road. Uncle lENNOX, have a pleasant night. And as we say, happy African emancipation. And I cannot leave without saying that Keith Rowley pregnant a child at school age when he was a teacher, ruled this country, pregnant all his supporters and them. And then he had a pedophile ring report in his desk for the last 10 years. And now we're seeing that the people that put to protect the children, they are the predators and them. Uncle lENNOX, God bless you, and Saturday God spare life. Thank you all. Everybody be safe, and let's share the love.
Thank you very much, of course, for that contribution, Mr. Faizabad. That was Mr. Faizabad. Of course, the takeaway from those statements, I will identify two areas, of course. One is that with respect to another caller who called earlier, with respect, of course, to my pursuance of what is called the Me Too movement agenda against Rowley. Well, of course, he did talk about the pedophile that Rowley is, and of course, the rapist that he is. I have mentioned that, and I've given, of course, enough evidence to demonstrate same from time immemorial. So that is a fact, and of course, the coward that he is, he never, of course, challenged me in court, even though, of course, I would have sent him a pre-action protocol letter suggesting that he suggested that I'm a liar, and that therefore, of course, I was able to do so without fear. We have another caller online, on the phone itself. Let me see. Hello?
Yes, boy.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
Hey, lENNOX.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, good night.
Yes.
The Prime Minister has always said put God in front and walk behind. Not so?
Yeah. This Prime Minister is very consistent. Put God in front, and of course, the rest of us, including herself, will go after. And I think that statement that she made with respect to or response to Akash, I mean, is consistent with what she would normally say. Always, of course, with having faith in the Almighty, or that what I consider be omnipotent one. Go ahead, my friend.
So where's the problem them having with that Akash and Lumpkin and them?
Yes.
They don't believe in God or what?
No, but they're trying to bring mundane circumstance into the narrative, because they are trying to preempt something that they believe cannot happen, but they want it now because it's all part of a plot to try to destabilize the government. Clearly,
You know that?
yeah, and to of course take action preemptorily, because they know once the government settles down, that they don't have a ghost of a chance of getting back into government anytime at all. I wouldn't even say anytime soon, but anytime at all. But go ahead, my friend.
But even though we could see that it was a foregone conclusion
Yes.
that the coalition will win the election. There's something wrong with it. Everybody else could have seen that except he and Akash Cameron and all them.
Yes.
That was straightforward.
Yes. People, just in case you just joined us, this is the issue that we are addressing here. What Kamala Prasad Bisesa responded in terms of the increase by 10%.
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it.
Just a minute. Let me just play it so those who are listening will hear.
10% salary increase that you have promised publicly approaching. Are you all setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise.
approaching. Are you all setting aside money for that 10% salary increase that you have promised publicly?
God willing, we keep our promises.
So in this fiscal year coming next
God willing, we will keep our promise. Still working on it. Looking for money. If you have any, give us some.
Yes, indeed, of course. Go ahead, my friend. I just thought I should make that intervention because I know people might now have joined us, and we want to put this particular discussion in context. So go ahead, Mr. Tagarigua. Yes.
So why say that? You are saying 39 seats over here, right?
Yes.
Everybody was seeing that the contract was booked for the PNM.
Uh-huh.
Everyone can go see that. They say Chinese is smaller.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Chinky, you can see that?
Uh-huh.
But if Balize have them for so tired.
But you always talk about Balize juice.
Yeah, boy.
It is an elixir that, of course, make people, stupefy people, make them nincompoops, and of course their obtuse disposition is reflected, of course, in the nonsense that they speak on a daily basis. Go ahead, my friend. Yes. Yes.
All of a sudden, you know what to do and what they could do and what they can do.
Yes.
All of a sudden,
Yeah, they could do everything. Self-righteous indignation, it is called, or is it self-righteous indignation of a contradictory nature? Because I mean, if you're self-righteous, it means that you suddenly find yourself being on the right side. But of course, they are talking right side talk for talk's sake, and therefore you could only see them as hypocrites. Go ahead.
Right? You know, if I am mistaken, yeah.
I hear you.
Tonight on the news,
Yeah.
and that same reporter tried to push microphone at Mikila Pandey.
Yes, go ahead, yes.
She said, she turned away from them, you know. She said, let's give them a chance and let's see what's going to happen. So she looked like she backpedaling from that stupidness what she was on.
Well, yeah, well, I suppose that is the reality. I heard Ramona, who was an avid, of course, critic of Kamala Prasad Bisesa, is now, of course, twisting her tongue, so to speak, in an attempt, of course, to placate, to pacify, and to, of course, get into the good graces of where the air is rare. After all, the boss is here, and you cannot, of course, doubt that now. She is Prime Minister, and she can, of course, determine who must eat and who mustn't eat, and who must be in her cabinet and not, or indeed who must, of course, contribute at the management level to, of course, governance, and the delivery of the various services that government is expected not only to deliver, but to facilitate. Go ahead. Yeah. Maruna, yes, who the former representative for Shogunas West.
Right. So, boy, it's a matter of time, Lennox. The Balizé Jews send the PNM people mad.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, but the Ramona Ramjala them was never no PNM ready.
I agree.
Just fool and want to oppose Kamala.
Yeah.
Mikila Pandey like she gets herself now.
Yeah, all of them will, I'll say that slowly but surely they are going to realize that for the next, I can't even put a time limit. So I'll say for the next unlimited amount of elections, they will have to contend with the UNC and the coalition of interests. Being the dominant force in the political arena governing Trinidad and Tobago by forming government. Go ahead.
I hear a man talk a piece of stupidness in the like, you know.
Go ahead.
About how guns that cost $25,000.
Oh, what?
Guns.
Guns that cost $25,000. All right, go ahead, yes.
You want to know? When he suggested he's a poor man.
Yeah.
And with the hand motion, he showed you that guns is only for the upper class people.
Oh, so he's saying that the stand your ground legislation will only benefit, because those persons who could afford that high price of a gun. All right, okay.
But once you have a criminal record, you can't get that, you know. And you really think Kamala them go bring gun here costing $25,000?
I thought you would have said, man, come on now, man. I thought you would have said that nobody invaded no poor man house is the same damn rich man who can afford the gun, yes? So right. Yeah, go ahead. I just want to make sure that we have a perspective, man. No poor man ain't getting no home invasion. Is the rich man. So therefore, if they could afford the gun, or put another way, based on what he's saying, that poor man can't afford a gun, suggesting that somehow the poor man house is being invaded. No poor man house is being invaded, so that's not waste time with that. But go ahead.
Well, exactly, but I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, all right.
Right? But you said, but you could see that he going with that.
Yeah, we know. He tried to generate a sympathy and an argument. There's a non-argument.
That is only for big boys.
Yeah, that wasted time. You see, listen, there are too many simpletons in this country who, of course, make statements that is not grounded in any kind of reality, common sense, logic, and rationality. And from the time that, you see me, once I see that, I want to shoot it down one time. Of course, pardon the pun on shoot, because of course we are in a violent episode at this point in time. We have a SOE, but that is an appropriate term to use at this point in time for people like that, because they simply want to talk for talking's sake. Makes no sense. Or you could say that a gun costs $25,000, and therefore suggesting that poor man homes are going to be exposed, when in fact poor man homes are not invaded.
I'm telling you, I watch me, the big white man on TV to talk to boy.
I hear you.
I give all them people come like Florida, so what?
All right.
People, we have a gun for the protection.
Yes.
Over the hell, but you can tell on the hell and you talk the right thing there.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to go. Somebody else is calling. Okay then. Bye-bye. Yeah. Rachel. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to make a contribution, or you want to talk to me?
Oh, no. I saw like you was calling me a little after I leave.
Oh, yes. I was calling you to get somebody's number. Oh, Karim's number. I want Karim's number.
I do have Karim's number.
All right, okay. No. I called Nigel after I called you. And Nigel, I think he told me that he would have sent it to me. So that is the reason why I was calling you. All right then, thanks. Well, people, of course, we are after... Let me see. Let me take off my glasses. Imagine I take off my glasses to see. Just imagine that. So it means that we're in it for fun. It's now, of course, nearly 9:45. Of course, we have gone 15 minutes beyond the time that we ought to be spending together. But I had another video that I wanted to share with you. But of course, that particular issue about the money and the 10% that was promised on the campaign trail, I think, took precedent. And as a consequence, we'll have to discuss that, which I wanted to discuss in addition to what we highlighted earlier or on the program so far. We'll have to do that on Saturday. Don't forget, of course, I want to tell the national community incident-free, have an incident-free Emancipation Day tomorrow. I will be, at Spargos tomorrow. Yes, I will be. It's my Sabbath, my sabbatal, I should say. And therefore, of course, I prefer to spend it that way. Of course, I will be taking note of the goings-on, because just on Piccadilly Greens, not too far from here, the procession of let's say, celebrants will pass, and therefore, of course, I will have some videos of that. But once again, as I started, there is a leadership deficit among the African communities, and therefore those persons who have been given the exalted position of leader, please do some introspection tomorrow, today, next week, whatever it is, and understand that at one time, as I said on the ground report this morning, in Trinidad and Tobago, the best lawyer, the best surgeon, the best public pilot, etc., would have been an African in the 60s and in the early 70s. Today, that is not the case. The best schools, in terms of performance, would have been at the level of the primary schools in and around Port of Spain. Rosary Boys, Rosary Girls, Nelson Street, etc. And indeed, the best secondary schools performances would have been CIC, Fatima College, and QRC. And of course, as far as the girls are concerned, then you have, of course, those other schools that are in and around the Savannah and in Belmont, etc. Very significant, producing scholars par excellence. But today, after a government or a party that claims to be of African focus and not just support, but advancement. We have seen that all of those indicators to show excellence, to show progress, have moved to Central and South Trinidad. So much so that the very party is so ashamed of its malperformance and its betrayal of the African community. They have decided deliberately to promote mediocrity. 400 open scholarships reduced to 100. And the 300 that they took out from that, they put it in the Ministry of Education so that the Minister of Education, a PNM operative, will look at, of course, those persons who have not been able to meet the grade as far as par excellence is concerned, but are connected to the PNM. They then, of course, give them scholarships and so on, and let them come back to Trinidad, and then, of course, open up the public sector so that they could get work, and thus, of course, the further deterioration and destruction of Trinidad and Tobago administratively, governance, as well as, of course, the situation with our social unraveling, crime, unemployment, inability to, of course, manage the heavy portfolio that you would have been given, and therefore, of course, causing Trinidad and Tobago standing on the regional, international, and hemispheric position to deteriorate drastically. That is what the PNM has done to us. So I say to you leaders, I say to the Emancipation Support Committee, you do not have any option. You are faced with the Hobson's choice to do a perennial assessment and the delivery to the African community so that we could get back to where we were in the 1960s and the early 1970s. That is the task. That is the mission. There is no choice. Yes, I am here in East Port of Spain. I'm beaming from George Street, yes. And I understand my task. But those who would have been given plenty, much is expected of you. I don't have any money. I have not been given any position in the government as yet. I expect, of course, that to happen because of the position that I would have taken in the government. Notice if the Emancipation, those persons who are managing the Emancipation Committee had taken the same position as I have, I'm sure we would have been in a better place now. And I want to tell the Laventille, East Port of Spain, of course, Beetham, Sealat, and other communities that this is about winning. So Labre has gotten a place in the parliament because they didn't do like Laventille and East Port of Spain and so on and scuttle the chance. They put the UNC coalition candidate in government, they vote for them, and they won the elections. So too is Point Fortin, and they are in the parliament. And I expect that these communities will now be the beneficiary positively of the presence of these people in government. What you have done in East Port of Spain and in Laventille, and of course Mova, etc. You betrayed yourself. You shoot yourself in the foot. So do not come to me and believe that I could wave a magic wand. As I say, we have over 1,000 persons looking for employment, looking for food card, looking for resolution to even their books, their book lists, and getting their children in school. They are looking for business opportunities and, of course, the capital that is required in order for them to engage in business. My candidate was not, in other words, my candidate was rejected. He is not in the parliament. And whether Kamala or anybody else that like it, if you had voted for him, he would have been in the parliament, and therefore most likely would have been in the cabinet, like of course those of Labre and Point Fortin. So please, while I am committed, this is about winning, and only winners get the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. That's not to waste time. So I'm not going to fool you. I am going to do my best. I have a good team working. We have communicated with all of the ministers, and we have gone beyond that by communicating with strategically located embassies and ambassadors and high commissioners to come in this part of the country, to come in this part of Port of Spain. And we have done it in the past, we will do it again. And to bring opportunities. But you failed by not unanimously voting, and I don't care whether you say you vote or not. The fact of the matter is that we did not win. And winning is the ultimate to deliver. So I cannot go and talk to any minister or the prime minister without, of course, recognizing that I did not deliver. Because she smart enough to say, Smith, your candidate didn't win. And neither of the candidate in Port of Spain South and Port of Spain North, even though, of course, Philip Alexander would have gotten, even though he lost. But lENNOX Smith, and of course, our candidate is not Philip Alexander. So he was given a bly. But he too, push come to shove, because he told me the other day, when I asked him about a particular issue, and to push it from inside of the cabinet, he says, Smith, the woman say, bat in your crease. Don't go beyond your portfolio or your line. So me, I batted in my crease. Why? Because he wants to preserve his job. And I ain't vexed with him. Because if it's me, I would want to do the same thing, because if I'm inside, I'm able, of course, to help more than if, of course, I would have been jettisoned or rebuked or dismissed. So people, have a wonderful rest of the night. I wish for you an incident-free Emancipation Day tomorrow. I will not be on air, but don't be surprised if I may well come, because of the enthusiasm that I may feel for, of course, bringing the information and the energy and the vibration and the electricity that the occasion might have brought. So, but of course, as it stands officially, don't expect me tomorrow night. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. And of course, we'll end as we started, because whilst, of course, this is an African thing, but we have to, of course, understand that we are not living as a community on an island by ourselves, but we are living with other members and other strains of humanity, Indians, Chinese, Syrians, etc.
Once upon a time there was a magic island full of magic people. Let me tell you a story about their pain and their glory. Oh yeah. Many rivers flow to this naked eye, bringing fair and pain, but also a brand new style.
Thank you.
And of all these rivers that shape this land, two mighty ones move like a sculptor's hand. And today those hands across the land, man, is still landscaping. And there's no doubt we are working out, there is no escaping. As the river flows, there are those who will change its passage. But every common man got to understand them and send their message.
Psalm 27.
So put up your hand if you understand.
Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh,
One lovely nation under a
God willing, we keep our promise.
Ganges can meet the night.
God willing, we will keep our promise.
Them boys with the hidden agendas and the mind benders.
Looking for money. If you have any, give us
Don't take it
some. Thank you.
Your smart men and politicians can come along if they want. Cause the people got the power and the glory. See how we float in style.
God willing, we will